My brother stole my business idea and got famous until I released proof. It was mine. Now he's bankrupt, and I own everything he lost. I've always been the quiet one in my family, the planner, the thinker. My older brother Jake was the talker, the type who could walk into any room and have people laughing within minutes. Me. I was the guy in the corner, sketching ideas on napkins and losing track of time thinking about what could be. Our parents used to joke that Jake would own the world while I built gadgets in a garage. I laughed with them, but a part of me always wondered if being underestimated would one day work in my favor. We grew up in a small town where success was measured by how loud you could brag about it. Jake fit right in. I didn't. While he was partying through college, I was in the computer lab, teaching myself how to build systems that could make small businesses run smarter. My final year project was supposed to be just another assignment. Instead, it became my obsession, an AI-driven platform that could automate customer engagement, saving local shops thousands. I spent nights testing algorithms, mapping workflows, refining every line of code until it felt perfect. The day it finally worked, I couldn't keep it to myself. So, like an idiot, I called Jake. He showed up with his usual grin. "Man, you've been quiet for weeks. What's this top-secret thing you're working on?" I told him everything. The model, the design, even the long-term vision. I showed him the demo, the data, the potential. For the first time, he actually looked impressed. "Bro," he said, staring at the screen. This could change everything." I didn't realize then how true those words were. I thought we were about to build something together. I had no idea I'd just handed him the blueprint for the biggest betrayal of my life. And that was the moment everything began to unravel. Jake and I started meeting almost every night after that. My tiny apartment turned into our so-called innovation lab. He'd bring takeout, I'd bring coffee, and together we'd sketch out business models on the whiteboard. For the first time, it felt like we were equals. Two brothers building something real, something ours. He told me, "You handle the brains, I'll handle the charm." It sounded fair enough. I wasn't great with people or presentations, and he had a way of making even dull numbers sound exciting. I wanted to believe it was partnership, not dependence. I remember one night vividly. Our parents came over, and Jake proudly showed them our demo. Mom's eyes filled with pride, saying, "Finally, both my boys are working together." Dad patted Jake's shoulder, not mine, but I brushed it off. It didn't matter who got the praise as long as the dream stayed alive. As the project grew, Jake suggested we start making things official. He said he'd take care of the paperwork, licensing, and the business name while I focused on refining the tech. "You hate that admin stuff," he told me, and he wasn't wrong. I just didn't realize what signing those few forms would mean later. We talked about the future like kids planning a road trip, angel investors, a launch party, maybe even a joint TED Talk. Every late-night conversation ended with Jake saying, "We're going to make it big, bro. Just trust me," and I did. Every single word. I remember watching him file a few documents on his laptop, muttering, "Just securing the business name so no one else takes it." I thought nothing of it. If I'd looked over his shoulder that night, I would have seen the first act of theft unfold in real time. But I didn't. I was too busy believing in brotherhood to notice betrayal being typed into existence. And soon, the blind trust would cost me everything I'd built. The first red flag appeared a few weeks later. Jake started canceling meetings, ignoring my calls, and replying to messages with one-word answers. He said he was networking and handling PR. I figured he was just busy, maybe even stressed. After all, we were on the verge of pitching to real investors for the first time. Then one afternoon, I got a congratulatory text from a friend in the industry. "Dude, congrats on the launch. The promo looks insane." Launch? Promo? I hadn't launched anything. Confused, I searched online, and there it was. A press article featuring Jake's face under the headline, "Local Entrepreneur Launches Groundbreaking AI Startup." My stomach dropped. The company name was new, but the product was mine. The interface, the demo, the tagline, I recognized every line of code, every pixel. My brother had rebranded my creation and claimed it as his own. I called him immediately. He actually picked up, his tone casual, almost bored. "Jake, what the hell is this?" "What do you mean?" "My work, my program. You launched it without me." He laughed softly, that smug tone I'd always hated. "Relax, man. I'm handling the business side. You'll get your cut." "My cut?" I repeated, my voice cracking. "We built this together." "No," he said flatly. "I built the company. You just coded the product. Don't make this awkward." I stood there in silence, my entire world collapsing in real time. He hung up before I could speak again. When I told my parents, they sided with him. Dad said, "Jake's just more business-minded. You should be proud your idea is going somewhere." Proud? I'd been erased from my own dream. That night, staring at the glowing logo of Jake's company on my screen, I whispered to myself, "You can steal my idea, Jake, but I'll make sure one day everyone knows the truth." And that was the night the fire inside me finally woke up. Jake's company exploded overnight. News outlets called him the visionary from a small town. Influencers promoted his platform, investors lined up, and within months, his face was on every tech magazine I used to dream of being in. Every headline, every quote, every success story came from the work I'd built line by line in that cramped apartment. I tried to fight it at first. I called a few lawyers, hoping there was something I could do, but they all said the same thing. He registered the business, trademarked the product, and filed patents in his name. You don't have a case unless you can prove prior ownership. Prove it. The only proof I had was buried in old drafts and sleepless nights. I didn't even think to protect myself, because who guards against their own brother? Meanwhile, Jake was basking in fame. He bought a luxury condo, started giving interviews about how hard work and vision beat luck, and even wore a fake humble smile when he said, "This project was inspired by my family." My phone buzzed constantly with people asking if I worked for him. I stopped answering. My parents called once, saying, "You should be proud of Jake. He's putting our name on the map." I wanted to scream, "I put our name on the map." But what was the point? No one believed me. The pressure broke my relationship, too. My girlfriend looked at me one night and said, "I can't watch you spiral over this. You're obsessed." Then she packed her things and left. So I did what broken people do. I shut down. I stopped eating, stopped coding, stopped caring. Every click of Jake's name online felt like a knife twisting deeper. I'd lost my work, my love, my family's respect. And yet the worst part was knowing Jake slept peacefully every night on the success he stole from me. But fate wasn't done with either of us yet, and neither was I. Months passed in a blur of quiet rage. I was a ghost in my own life, no motivation, no direction. The only thing that kept me sane was routine. Waking up, scrolling through news about Jake's empire and hating every second of it. But one night, while cleaning out my old laptop to sell it, I stumbled upon a forgotten folder labeled Prototype EV1. Inside were everything I thought I'd lost. Timestamps, drafts, sketches, voice memos, even emails I'd sent Jake discussing the early concept. Every file was dated months before his company existed. My hands started shaking as I opened one email. "Jake, check out the new UI layout I built tonight. Think it fits our brand?" His reply had been short, "Looks solid. We'll talk tomorrow." Tomorrow. That tomorrow never came. For the first time in months, something inside me lit up again. I organized everything, zipped folders, metadata, cloud backups. I even found the original pitch deck with my name as sole author. It was undeniable proof, but I didn't rush to expose him. Not yet. I wanted to be smart this time. Instead, I decided to rebuild. Quietly. I picked up small freelance coding gigs to stay afloat, saving every dollar. At night, I'd take online business courses, learning everything Jake had pretended to know: marketing, contracts, intellectual property. I wasn't just planning revenge. I was preparing for resurrection. Friends who still spoke to me asked why I wasn't fighting back. I just told them, "You don't fight a wildfire when you're unarmed. You wait until it burns itself out." And deep down, I knew Jake's fire would eventually consume him. All I had to do was be ready when it did. Because the next time I built something, no one, not even my brother, would be able to take it away. A year later, I wasn't the same person. The bitterness was still there, but it had hardened into focus. Every night after my freelance work ended, I poured myself into rebuilding the platform. Better, smarter, faster. I stripped away Jake's branding and added everything he'd overlooked. Privacy layers, automation flexibility, real ethical safeguards. I named it Spectra, a quiet nod to being invisible yet powerful. I didn't make noise about it this time. No social posts, no pitches, no interviews. Just late nights, black coffee, and a relentless promise to myself that I'd win the right way. Slowly, small businesses began noticing. One client turned into 5, then 20. They didn't care about hype. They cared that my software actually worked. Meanwhile, Jake's company had started to show cracks. His flashy marketing couldn't hide what insiders whispered about. Data leaks, overpromises, and mounting refund requests. I read it all silently, smiling to myself. Karma wasn't instant, but it was patient. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. One morning, I got an email from an investor group asking for a meeting about a potential acquisition. They said they'd been watching my product quietly and were impressed with its scalability. Out of curiosity, I looked up their portfolio. Jake's company was one of theirs. It was poetic. The same investors who'd once bankrolled my brother now wanted to buy my version of the product. I agreed to the meeting under my alias, careful not to reveal my full name yet. That night, I sat at my desk staring at the glowing screen, realizing something profound. Jake might have stolen my idea, but I'd taken back my power, and soon, the brother who'd erased me was going to learn what it felt like to be invisible. The investor meeting turned into something bigger than I expected. They invited me to present Spectra at a major tech conference in the city, an event filled with industry leaders, press, and investors. I hesitated at first. The last time my work was in the spotlight, someone else had stolen it. But this time, I wasn't naive. I wasn't a dreamer looking for validation. I was the storm no one saw coming. When I arrived, the hall buzzed with energy. Flashing cameras, LED displays, people wearing suits worth more than my car. As I signed in, I noticed a familiar name on the list of presenters. Jake Rivers, founder of Nexuvo. My pulse spiked. Of all the coincidences in the world, the universe had picked this one. He showed up in true Jake fashion. Designer suit, fake charm, cameras eating him up. I don't think he recognized me at first. Maybe it was the beard, the new company name, or the quiet confidence I'd earned through pain. But when he saw my logo on the banner beside his booth, he froze mid-sentence. "Spectra?" he muttered, walking over with that same arrogant smirk. "Didn't realize you were still coding, little bro." I looked at him evenly. "Didn't realize you were still pretending." He chuckled, masking his discomfort. "Good luck today. Hope your little project gets some attention." But it did, more than he ever expected. Investors crowded my booth, impressed by the clean interface, the ethical framework, the transparency Jake's platform lacked. I saw his smile fade as one of his own backers walked straight to me and asked for a demo. By the end of the day, people weren't talking about Jake Rivers. They were talking about the Spectra team, about me. And for the first time, I saw fear in my brother's eyes. He didn't know it yet, but the balance of power had just shifted, and this time, I was the one holding the match. 2 weeks after the conference, the silence from Jake's side was almost satisfying. Investors were calling Spectra the next ethical revolution in tech, while Jake's company was being slammed with refund demands and allegations of data misuse. I could have sat back and enjoyed the slow collapse, but after everything he'd taken from me, silence wasn't enough. It was time to finish what he started. It began when Jake's lawyer sent me a cease and desist letter, accusing me of copying his product. The irony was almost funny. I sat there reading it, shaking my head, knowing I held every piece of proof that could destroy him in seconds. That night, I recorded a video, not as a rant, not as a victim, but as a creator telling the truth. I titled it, "The Truth Behind Nexuvo." I spoke calmly, showing time-stamped prototypes, source code histories, and emails where Jake had called my early builds our idea. Each screenshot, each time-stamped file was a nail in his coffin. I stayed silent, I said in the video, because I believed blood was thicker than business. But when blood turns to poison, truth is the only antidote. I posted it at 2 a.m. By sunrise, it had exploded. Tech YouTubers, journalists, and even ex-employees of Jake's company were reposting it. Within 24 hours, the video hit 5 million views. Hashtags like Yash Stolen Code and Yash Justice for Spectra trended worldwide. Jake went into panic mode. His PR team tried damage control, but the evidence was too overwhelming. Sponsors pulled out. Investors went silent. The empire he built on my work was collapsing in real time, and all I had to do was watch. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the quiet brother. I felt like the truth finally had a voice, and it was mine. In the days that followed, Jake's perfect world crumbled faster than even I expected. News anchors dissected my video frame by frame. Old interviews of him claiming to be the sole creator resurfaced with mocking captions. Sponsors withdrew. Investors demanded refunds. His face, the one that used to smile from billboards, was now plastered across headlines that read, "Tech star exposed as a fraud." I should have felt euphoric. And in some ways I did. But there was something haunting about watching someone you once loved drown in the same waters they threw you into. The difference was, Jake couldn't swim without lies to float on. 3 nights after the video went viral, my phone lit up with his name. I stared at it for a full minute before answering. "Jake?" I said. Silence, then a shaky breath. "You destroyed me," he whispered. "You had to make it public?" "You destroyed yourself," I replied. "I just turned on the lights." He let out a bitter laugh. "You think they'll remember you? You'll always be the guy who tried to ride my wave." "Jake," I said softly, "I built the ocean." He hung up. That was the last time we spoke for months. The next morning, I opened my inbox to hundreds of messages, business offers, collaboration requests, interview invites. Spectra's servers were overloaded with new sign-ups. Clients leaving his company were joining mine in droves. I didn't even need to advertise. His downfall was my marketing campaign, but while I was rising, he was free-falling. His investors filed lawsuits. His luxury condo was listed for sale. I heard he'd even started drinking heavily, and though a part of me wanted to feel pity, I couldn't, because every tear he shed now was a debt paid on the pain he once made me live through. But fate wasn't done teaching him yet, and the next time we met, he wouldn't be wearing designer suits. He'd be wearing guilt. It was late one evening when I heard a soft knock on my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, I barely recognized the man standing there. Jake looked hollow. His hair was unkempt, his clothes wrinkled, and the arrogance that once filled every inch of him was gone. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. For a long second, I just stared. Then I stepped aside. He shuffled in, glancing around the small space like he was searching for something familiar. Maybe the brother he'd buried under his ambition. He sat on the couch, rubbing his hands together. "I lost everything," he said. "Investors, friends, even mom and dad won't talk to me." His voice cracked. "I thought I was untouchable. I thought fame would fix everything wrong inside me." I stayed silent, letting him speak. For once, Jake wasn't performing. He was unraveling. "I didn't mean to steal it all," he whispered. "I just wanted to be seen. You were always the smart one, the one people actually respected. I wanted to matter, too." His words stung more than I expected. I'd fantasized about this moment for years. Him on his knees, me in control. But instead of satisfaction, all I felt was exhaustion. "Jake," I said finally, "you didn't just take an idea. You took my years, my trust, my peace. Do you understand that?" He nodded, tears streaming. "I do, and I'm sorry. Please help me start over. I'll do anything." For a moment, I almost believed him. But then I remembered every sleepless night, every humiliation, every time he watched me break and smiled. "I can't," I said quietly. "You taught me what trust costs. I'm done paying for it, he didn't argue. He just nodded, stood up slowly, and walked out into the cold night. And as the door clicked shut behind him, I realized forgiveness wasn't always healing. It was release. After Jake's visit, something inside me finally settled. The anger that had once fueled every decision began to fade, replaced by something steadier. Clarity. I wasn't chasing revenge anymore. I was building legacy Spectra took off like wildfire. The scandal surrounding Jake's downfall had made ethics in tech a trending topic, and my platform, transparent, user-first, clean, became the gold standard. Clients weren't just buying software. They were buying integrity. Within a year, I had a team of 30 employees, a real office, and investors who actually respected boundaries. But the most surreal moment came when my lawyer called me one afternoon. "There's an auction happening next week," he said. "Your brother's company assets, servers, trademarks, everything, are being liquidated. You might want to take a look." I did more than look. I bid, and I won. Standing in that empty corporate building felt like walking through a graveyard of everything Jake had stolen. The once bustling offices were silent now, just empty desks and the faint smell of stale ambition. I walked into the CEO's office, his old office, and saw the massive glass desk where he once signed contracts that erased me. I sat in his chair, opened my laptop, and signed the final paperwork. Nexuvo, the name he'd stolen and corrupted, was now mine. My lawyer asked what I wanted to do with it. "Shut it down," I said. "For good." The next morning, I issued a press release announcing that Nexuvo had been officially dissolved and absorbed into Spectra. The internet erupted. Comments like "poetic justice" and "he really reclaimed it all" flooded in. But I didn't smile for the headlines. I smiled because, for the first time in my life, the noise was gone. Jake had built a throne out of lies. I built a foundation out of truth, and that's what lasted. A few months after shutting down Jake's company, I drove back to our hometown for the first time in years. The streets looked smaller, quieter, almost frozen in time. As I pulled up to our old house, I saw the porch light still flickering, the same one Dad never got around to fixing. Inside, Mom greeted me with a hug that lasted longer than I expected. There was no mention of Jake at first. Just small talk, coffee, and the kind of silence that fills the space between people who've seen too much pain. When I finally asked how he was, her eyes dimmed. "He's trying," she said softly. "Working a normal job, keeping to himself. He doesn't talk much anymore." For a moment I imagined him, the man who once owned penthouses and cameras flashing in his face, now sitting alone in a quiet apartment. And for the first time, I didn't feel hatred, just pity, because I finally understood that Jake never wanted to steal my success. He wanted to feel what real accomplishment felt like. He just didn't know how to earn it. Before I left, I walked into my old bedroom. On the dresser sat a faded photo of us as kids, 2 brothers covered in mud, smiling like the world belonged to us. I picked it up, wiped the dust away, and laughed quietly to myself. "I guess it did change everything," I murmured. As I stood there, I realized my story wasn't about revenge, it was about reclamation. I didn't need to destroy Jake to win. I just needed to reclaim my peace. Driving home that night, city lights reflecting off my windshield, I felt something I hadn't in years. Light. He wanted fame. I wanted fairness, and in the end, I got both.